And I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, there sure was.
All right, do it. Ready? Okay, we're on. I welcome you to the committee, but I don't even know what we're called. We're here to talk about what we might be able to do with the St. Albans Junior High property. We had a public forum previously. Looks to me like everybody who is here today was probably at that last meeting. There might be one or two extras. So I'm not going to bother with a whole lot of real pleasantries, if you will, tell you how the committee was put together and all that kind of stuff. We're just going to try to discuss amongst the committee certain things that we feel like we need to deal with. Most important has come up that there is a main sewer line that runs through this property in some manner. And so before we can make a meaningful recommendation to City Council, we're going to have some people from the city come out and designate for us where that line goes. What we can build on top of it, or what we can build around it, or what we can put where. Yes, sir. Please.
We cannot build on top of it.
Well,
anything.
It's all evidence to the contrary, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Because in 1990
yes.
or 1900, you could build anything.
Yeah.
But
Today's
Marshall
code.
said today's
Yeah.
code, we cannot build 7 foot on either side or nothing on top.
7 foot on either side. Okay. Good information.
And it is 30 feet off of 10th Street.
30 feet from the edge.
Edge of 10th Street.
Okay. So if it comes 30 feet in, and we can't build for another 7 feet, that's 37 feet that has to be green somehow. I'm assuming we can't even pave on it. Okay.
Can't even put a sidewalk.
Can't even, what?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay.
Sure does.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. There's a map. Okay, so, calling this meeting to order. With that in mind, first of all, we're charged with making a recommendation to the city, and some of the things that we have done is solicit the input, and I provided some forms for people to fill out. And as a result of a review of those forms, I listed some options of my own, and then I listed some a catch-all. And let me just tell you that based on what I got back, the recommendations from the public submitted in writing after the last meeting included 6 people who wanted to turn it into green space. 1 wanted it divided into smaller lots to build single-family dwellings. 2 wanted it developed as multifamily dwellings or townhomes. 9 asked that it be developed as a recreation area. And there were 7 other recommendations with regard to specifics, including trying to make some type of park out of it. 2 people suggested some type of national park, 3 a community center, 2 a veterans park. There was also a suggestion that we try to put a small hotel there to allow for people to be able to come there and stay. Another one for an artisan center, and 2 suggested that we try to put an antique carousel on the grounds as a means of drawing people here also. And so we scheduled this meeting so we could come back and talk about what had happened before. We will still allow for some input, but before we do that, we're going to treat this pretty much like a city council meeting, and we're going to shove all y'all to the back and give you 3 minutes to speak about anything else that you want to add based on what we talk about now. So with that said, one other thing. I don't see how we can make recommendations without knowing what budget we might have, if any, whether there's a specific grant that might be available for this particular space or a particular project, and what the cost might be for this. We've also heard that there's some local people or organizations who might be willing to contribute something to anything that is added there, including at least one church. And we understand that there's, as with any type of donation from an organization like that, I'm assuming that there's some limit to it. I just don't know what it is. So until we have some idea of, number one, how much it would cost to build whatever we might want to recommend, and whether there's any money in the budget of the city to do that, we're kind of limited on what we can recommend until then. So this will not be our last meeting. We want the city to be able to go out and mark off the space where this sewer line is so we can see what area we actually have to work with, and then have the committee meet or have the opportunity to go and see the property on their own, and then come back and have another meeting sometime in the middle of May before we make a final recommendation to the city council. With that said, is there anybody on the committee who wants to throw something out there that we need to discuss, or you think we might need to consider between now and the time we have the city draw the lines? Bill?
No, you've covered what I was, that we need to get marked off and measured what we can do, what space we have to do. And that can limit 9 of the things you mentioned, we don't know.
Yeah, we have some tax maps that were provided to us. Ellen Mills Polly actually did the legwork and tracked these down and has them blown up. And the frontage here is about 250 feet. So we're going, if we lose 37 feet immediately, you can see what that does to us. And that line runs the entire length of the property. There's also an extra lot that is there. I happen to know the owners of that extra lot, and they're in negotiations now to try to see whether the city might be willing to take that lot over in return for some other work that the city might be able to perform for them on a third lot. That would increase the depth of the property, but not the width in any way.
I think that also goes with some stipulation on what the property would be used for, whether that party is willing to give up on the property. The use of the property will determine, I think, whether they are willing to relinquish that.
Okay.
One thing I would like to say, I agree with Mr. Phelan, but as the financing goes, I think, and this is my personal thought, and feel free to share otherwise, that's really going to be something, and I know we need to have general ideas, but financing, I think, is something that council's going to have to really tackle as far as getting into the nuts and bolts. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have some sort of ballpark where we have to stay into or something of that nature, but I don't think that we will be able to get really into financing, into grants. You know, we're not going to know if we get a grant. We can know that there might be one out there, but we don't know that we'll be awarded the grant or receive the grant when we apply for it. So I think, yes, we need to keep financing certainly as a thought in mind, but also I think that's going to have to be council's task, council's job to really do that.
And I don't belong, I'm not on city council, and frankly, I don't belong on city council. But for instance, Ellen's drawing here, do we have somebody who is, like for instance, Chapman Technical, are they somebody that we could ask, give us a ballpark idea of what we think this might cost? Marshall could?
Marshall can help a lot, and there is a, yes, there is, that's what I was saying, there is a grant out there that Marshall has already
Right.
acquired, and it has been assigned. He can get drawings rendered for us, like those that you have
Yeah.
on that one.
Uh-huh.
The ones that were from the previous meeting that were shared then. They can draw, it's Thrasher, I think, is who the.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
But there is still funding there that they can draw up additional designs like this one.
Okay.
That can be put into concept view as well.
And as they're doing that, can they give us an idea of the approximate cost of such a thing?
I don't have an
Only
answer.
one person can answer that would be Marshall,
Okay.
Yeah.
because he's into the building and the ins and outs of what needs to be done. But one thing I did want to say, excuse me, Dave,
He could get from those
Right,
drawings.
right.
Good, sorry.
but what I wanted to mention too, is I don't want everybody to think that we're gonna have one or two meetings and we're gonna finalize it.
Oh, yeah.
We can't do anything, in my opinion, till after the election.
Oh, I don't think we'll even have another
Well, that's
meeting
what
until
I'm,
after that.
that's what I'm making sure of.
Sure, absolutely. And I'd like, if Marshall is somebody, I mean, look, somebody who's in the building industry can look at that, a building such as this and say, I know that a building such as this we might have to budget $50 a square foot.
Give me that
for.
picture and I'll take it to Marshall.
You got it. Okay.
Marshall has questions, he's welcome to contact me. I don't think I put my number on there, but it's,
Ellen's the one
The
who,
lady who drew it up.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, ma'am,
it's fine.
oh, by the way, I asked Ellen if she would take notes.
that's right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I will tell Marshall that also.
Sure. And it's an easy enough thing to get an estimate on different components, because I think Mr. Rucker had said it's probable that this project will have to come in phases, because nobody's gonna just dump $1 billion on us and say, build it all tomorrow.
Sure.
So that you would.
I thought that's what you were here for.
Right.
We're waiting on you to write that.
Sawtooth National Bank. So that if you got close to an idea of what you wanted to do, you could break it down into phases and get estimates on those phases. You'd have to have some landscape work done, you'd have to have some, you maybe could put in that retaining wall that you need to keep the rest of Lee Street up there. You'd need to finalize some things like property acquisition and how much would it cost to finish 10th Street. Are you gonna have access to some of the stairs and property that St. Andrews has? And then, but, I mean, the cost on that building is easy to decipher in several different ways that it could be built.
And just to be clear, the other thing, and we, for example, Councilman Rowe has a plan as well. And this is what I mean by it really has to be on council as far as that goes. Is it gonna be grant? The committee has shared a little bit of information that, for public-private partnerships, which would mean that maybe the funding is a private sector individual or companies or conglomerates or whatever would want to come together and be partly involved in the development of the property. Is that by them having financial control or financial stake in the interest, 75, 25, 50, 100, whatever? Is that B&O tax, however it works out? But the PPP approach is one, the grants is one, but like she said, it would be piece by piece. Is it, and in Councilman Rowe, you don't mind if I share your, and I give him the credit because he's the one that drew it up from our previous meeting. The idea was to have, similar to this, to have a green space in the front, his drawing was a skate park that was on the backside. And that would be kind of designed off like Fayetteville's, a little pavilion area, gazebo pavilion area type of thing. But the real point I'm getting at to his idea is not necessarily, this is what will be determined, finalized, is what is on that piece of property. But the bigger point was across the street, across Kanawha Terrace, from this from the junior high property is a vacant piece of property. And his idea includes, and this is where the PPP comes into it, the possibility of purchasing that lot across the street, building the idea of small business at bottom level, at top level, second and third level would be nice townhouse housing that people would rent, so there would be revenue stream. Also, I think his drawing has, go ahead. I think his drawing also has, so here he has a picture of the townhouses or the businesses along the bottom, and I'll pass this around to you all.
Okay.
This is Winfield, but it's, okay. So it's got business down below and residence up top. So you have dual revenue that comes in there. So those are the things that council is gonna have to really address on, I think. So, but we need to determine what the general approach or what the general interest is.
What we take to council.
And that's what we take to council, yes.
What I was gonna suggest is, as the idea, irregardless of what the end result is, there are some things that you should probably, plan for, is like the basis. Like, the things that are given is, at some point, you're probably gonna want some infrastructure in there, like electrical and plumbing. And whether plumbing is for future use for the pavilion, or for a future restroom or something like that, plan for that to be put the rough ends, material things in the ground, and that be part of the plan
Right.
from the onset. And even regardless of what the final thing is on top, you have that future capability there. And the same thing with regard, once we have a hard area where we know the drain line's at, then it's a whole lot easier to involve the plan around that. And, like I said, and we talked about before, if you were gonna widen 10th Street and make it so that there's two-way driving on it and parking on one side, then that may get you really close to where that drain line's at. Because that drain line was, who knows when it was put in.
Right.
It was before the junior high school was built.
Yeah, so, once you know the information like that, you don't have to come up with a final plan, but it'll start to fall into place.
Right.
Is the drain line parallel to 10th Street?
Not necessarily. It is kind of, but it's not straight.
Well, but it comes down the side of 10th Street.
No, well,
30 feet from 10th Street.
yeah.
30 feet
And
in.
it's parallel.
It is somewhat parallel, yes.
Okay.
And along the front of,
Is that a picture of it?
yes, this is a map showing.
And what we're saying
It runs
is-
along the terrace, and then it goes up past the tennis courts. It goes
So-
up 10th and cuts over, and goes up by the tennis courts.
And what we're gonna ask to be done is to have that drawn out on the land, to have it painted to where you all can go and see, where is this drain pipe? Where is it laying? Exactly, and in it, how big is it, and how far on each side can we put any type of structure, any type of development of any sort?
Dumb question, but is it active? Is that
Oh,
old?
yeah, it's active.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. I know we've got some really old wing pipes, and I'm not sure.
Okay, it's getting just a little bit tough to hear because there's so many conversations going on, but speaking of that, has anybody put cameras, are we aware?
So it's hot.
It's good?
It's hot.
And is it possible that is relocating that line?
It's a very expensive job.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
It's going, actually, where's it going to?
Yeah, it's a storm sewer drain,
It's a
right?
storm water.
It's not sanitary sewer.
Right.
Okay.
It's a stormwater drain.
It's not fish on this.
No, it's not sewage, it's stormwater, but still, even to move it, it would be
Yeah.
too much money. We've already got enough money in this property to move it to a storm drain.
Okay.
Mark has it. I think it's Mark.
Yes, thanks. I just, from council, I guess, I think a surplus came over for the next year's
Hey,
budget.
guys, let's listen up, please.
Are there surplus funds set aside in some designated fund for future that can be designated for this property? The budget brought over a good bit of money, and it took that money to balance the 24-25 budget, I think is what I saw. And it was $6 million. Is that $6 million, that's all of it? It's just named undesignated funds?
That is cutting it to the bare bone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there's not another
No,
money
no.
that's there to bring over for
No.
a future budget?
Rainy day fund type
There's
of.
no rainy day
That
fund?
budget's cutting to the bare bone and bare minimum for all departments.
So we need that $6 million just to meet the general budget?
Just for general, Mark, just to let you know, we had budgeted $700,000 to pave our streets, and we got $220,000 because we had no money to spread out.
There's the answer.
My streets are.
Okay, we need to know those things, to know how to budget
Yeah,
for
right.
it.
Yeah, and that's why, like I say, the funding will have to be heavily grant or heavily from outside investment that people or companies are willing to take a gamble on the great town of St. Albans.
Because nothing we're talking about, even Ellen's schematics, Mike's skate park, we're talking $300,000 to $400,000.
Oh, minimum.
Minimum.
Just to get started.
Yeah.
So the phase, this has to be done in phases.
Yes, yes, and that's
Some of us
been,
may never live to see the end of the phase.
You're right.
Hey, David, has anybody contacted Orville Brown? He'll know everything about that fight.
We already know what.
we know what we need to know.
He'll know.
Yeah, and if we can't, and I don't mean this, I love Orville, but we gotta contact the current employees.
Okay.
And they have gone over it. We know all the information we need on it. We just need to know us individually where it is on the
Paint off
property.
where it is.
Paint off where it is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got the drawing for it. We know the details on it. It's just,
See, on the drawing, it doesn't tell you that you can't build 7 foot on either side. So that's why we need to be painted to know where it actually is.
Something else came up at the last meeting, and that was the possibility of perhaps acquiring the other property that was formerly part of the junior high from St. Andrew. And I don't know whether somebody from this committee I saw him come in, yeah. And I don't know whether somebody from this committee might be able to speak with maybe somebody's a member of St. Andrews, maybe somebody could talk
The
to.
gentleman back
I can
here.
answer to some of that.
Okay,
I talked to the chairman of the trustees, I'm vice chairman, but we want to be, want to sell it. We may be able to lease
okay,
it. That's an option.
okay.
Yeah, on a 5-year lease at a time to renewable. Yeah.
Okay. The football field part or the tennis court part or both?
The whole section up there.
Okay,
When we lease it, we can take the entire 7.5 acres in there.
Okay. So that presents some other potential options, although I don't know that the city would be interested in leasing the property, but I'm not gonna speak for you guys.
And we can't speak for
We
it.
can't speak,
Yeah.
but it would be hard pressed to do.
I mean, unless it was a joint, public-private partnership, arrangement of some sort, and then, again, there's the costs that are associated with that, but I'm not sure how much farther we can go until we know where that main drain line is. I'm happy to open it up for other people to talk about, but generally, the sense I have is people want it to be a community-oriented gathering place, is what I'm sensing from most everybody from the public. Now, the idea of a joint partnership with businesses on the bottom and rental properties on top, I believe is a moneymaker that would benefit the city. But that's not the gist of what I hear the people in the public might want.
No, I agree with that, and I'll be very clear, I'm for park as well, but with park, we have to find, and then I'll say this is, and council members I think would agree with this, we as a city have to be responsible. We have to find ways to fund things.
Right.
There has to be revenue stream. Now, I'll say clearly, I think that this manhole, or this storm drain, is going to limit greatly on what we are able to build on there. And I think it's gonna take a huge portion of this property away.
Sure.
But I think that's the opportunity, and that was the outside the box thinking that Councilman Rowe presented to a few of us of looking across Kanawha Terrace at that secondary property and letting that be the revenue stream. That way we can get, honestly, 3 birds in one stone. We get the idea of the housing up top, which, again, is a revenue stream. We get the idea of the commercial or business down at the bottom, revenue stream. I forgot to mention, I think Councilman Rowe, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your drawing or your mock-up have 2 spaces where food trucks could come in?
Yeah, that, by widening 10th Street to 30 feet.
Okay.
I mean, so that it was easy to have 2 lanes of traffic, and then food trucks could be parked facing out into the park if they.
So 10th Street would need to be widened to do that,
Yeah, and
but,
something else about the widening 10th Street is, and widening 10th Street could be gravel for the time being.
yeah.
It doesn't-
And that would cut into the property a
It
lot.
would cut significantly into the cost.
Yeah.
I think we will.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I'd like to suggest or tell is, we've already sunk $1.2 million in that property. And for us to go in and put a non-revenue sharing property there is not feasible, in my opinion, to the city of St. Albans. So, the part with the houses and the business on top would bring some money in and what have you. Whether that's the way it is, I'm not saying that's the way it should be. But we need to deeply look at, and nothing against the skate park. There's other areas in the city of St. Albans with torn houses that you could put a skate park in a smaller piece. But we got that big piece of property, we've got to try to get some of our $1.2 million back.
Well, that's what the proposal of getting the money back on the property across the street. The property that is vacant, if you purchase that property.
But we're talking about how much more money to do that piece of property.
Well, you're gonna have to do it at one of the pieces of property anyway. If you're gonna build something, you're going to.
You don't have to build houses or anything on that empty lot. Well, I don't understand.
It's money, it's revenue.
Well, on the other side, I mean, what we've been looking at is businesses on the bottom and residences on the top. But the way that other property that is designated on this map as LA properties, the way that slopes down, I think you'd actually be better off with residences on the bottom and the businesses on the top.
And
Because
either way.
they'd be, street level. Now, and the people could come in from behind and park for the residences that would be on the bottom. Nonetheless, that's the property that's across the street. And the junior high property itself, in order for it to generate revenue, this particular proposal that Ellen has drawn up and the proposal that Mike has drawn up that includes a skate park in the back, they have some potential for generating revenue with rentals, but that's also going to, I would assume, fall under the auspices of Parks and Recs. And their budget hasn't been increased for a while. We'd be talking about throwing more work on them because somebody has to be in charge of the rentals of that property, the maintenance of that property, the upkeep of that property. There's going to be more grass to mow. There's going to be other stuff to be taken care of with infrastructure that we talked about with electric and water and sewer that's going to have to be installed there. So there's going to be an investment there, and I don't know how much money this thing would generate if it's not a commercial property. And I think that's part of what Bill was saying. I think that's part of what you're saying. I don't know how it'll generate any significant money.
What's on that drawing there, Andy, that you just had? Is that housing? Or-
It's just a pavilion.
That Ellen drew up, that we talking about.
Because I went home from the last meeting, and I don't know why on one corner of it we couldn't have some type of little community building. I know Terry was suggesting someplace to hold.
Weddings.
That's.
But I was thinking more
Sell
about
lots.
it.
We can just sell the lots.
And have some
It was here, I don't know where.
classes of some kind, something similar to what you have over Hansford Center. But the Hansford Center if you had something similar to that, it'll be more the young people. But you could squeeze in, I don't know how big that is.
It's
Tell him about it.
Yeah, I would think you could at least get, on the Lee Street corner, you could get at least something 75, 80 feet.
If the sewer line is in the wrong spot, give me an idea, what are we cutting the property down to? Because that'll cut a whole lot of the discussion off.
We don't know, that's what we have to figure that out.
Yeah, that's why we want Marshall or somebody to go spray paint.
Public Works and Marshall will come and we'll get them to paint the area from each side of that pipe. If the pipe's right here, 7 foot to this far, you can't, 7 foot to this far.
14 feet.
And get them to spray paint down the whole length of that pipe, so everybody can see what property we have that you can actually build.
What would it take for him to do that now? Just by a telephone call, or do we have to?
Well, we'll request it from him within the next week.
She's had her hand up for a long time.
I just wanted to interject real quick. So we were talking about how much income could we conceivably, sorry, I'm gonna stand up because I'm short and I know y'all can't hear me. Conceivably for the event pavilion, kind of how much income could we reasonably expect that to make? So, as you guys know, when I brought this up, it was because of the amount of weddings and events that I do throughout several states. A wedding in the state of West Virginia at this point, the least expensive wedding, if you are booking a venue, you can plan to spend, starting at, for one day, $2,000 for one day.
For the rental of the
For
venue.
the rental of the venue. And that does not include tables, chairs, kitchen, starting at $2,000. It is a very conceivable thing, very bottom line bargain basement, that if we were renting this wedding venue, say for a Friday and Saturday, and they could come in on a Friday and then they would be responsible for cleaning up. It's in their contract. $5,000 a weekend to start. Period. 52 weeks of the year. People are getting married. The other thing about that type of space is that people would also be wanting to rent it, say, on a Sunday for baby showers or bridal showers at $100 an hour. Again, this is the bare minimum. They're responsible for cleaning it up. So obviously, as we all do, I want what would be the best thing for that property. But just as far as what kind of income you could generate, absolutely, that is the type of income you could very easily generate. You could see yourself making $20,000 to $30,000 a month just renting that space. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Terry?
Yes, the question that I have that I've heard here is we're jumping the gun. We need to find out exactly what you can put on it before, because of the pipe and everything.
Yes.
My recommendation would be that you have the heads of different departments, sewer, public works, and water, attend your next meeting and let them do some research between those periods of time to find out exactly what you can build on it, what the code does.
Right.
That type of thing.
And that's,
That's what you need to do to make any kind of decision at this point in time. Because you can't build a building on it if you have to move. I agree. It's probably gonna cost you $150,000 to move a storm sewer line. Storm sewers are even worse than sewer lines, because they're larger.
yeah, it's huge, I'm sure.
Chris?
I agree with you 100%, and if you have them do it, just like you said, can they mark it off? Because I've been down there a couple times, just measuring off myself, to kind of get an
We're gonna
idea.
ask you to take spray paint.
Yeah,
This was just brought up.
right, because
We
it-
just talked about
Yeah,
this.
no, that's the way, I agree 100%.
Since we're talking, how much space do we have? I think the 250 includes 10th Street. I stepped it off, maybe Chris, you can vouch.
Yeah.
It's 210 from the edge of 10th Street toward Lee. It is not 250.
And so if you take another 37
And I
off
know
of it,
we've got, I stepped mine and I stepped it, and mine was, I was right on target. So I think now that we've got the 30 feet that we've kind of lost on the west side, because you can't do much until you get into the center of the property. And then we've lost another 14 feet on the other side of the, no, 7 feet on the other side of the sewer. Your question, I think we've lost 40 to 50 feet for a developer, for anything.
Right, that's, yeah.
Bill?
With your permission, I will contact
Please,
the correct people to get that measured tomorrow.
thank you, and.
They may not do it tomorrow, but it'll
No,
be
no,
done within a
but
week.
if they can do it sometime in the next week, that'd be great. Also, Brian, aren't you, who's on Parks, one of y'all's Parks and Rec? That you-
Oh, he was.
I mean, you, will you talk to Kevin? So, because we need to have some idea of what he anticipates something like the project will do to his, manpower and budget.
Do you wanna know the desire of Kevin or the budgetary impact?
Yes?
I can tell you the desire, I don't have the budget.
Okay, all right.
I can tell you.
Yeah, I got a feeling I know it's desire too.
It's a part.
Yeah, yeah.
It's what?
It's a part.
Really?
Or the idea we discussed, I don't mean a playground park, you know,
Green space.
green space.
Oh, I thought you said apartments.
No, a park is what,
Okay, I think Terry makes valid points. I don't really think that there's a whole lot we can do further. Sorry, Ellen.
The pavilion, as I drew it, is 102 feet, and that's a totally arbitrary figure. It could be less, more, whatever. And it's built back there on the part of that lot that should be approximately 202.9 feet wide. So you would have about 50 feet on the left-hand side of Lee Street, 50 feet on the right-hand side. There's nothing that says that you can't move that pavilion to the left,
To the Lee Street side, east.
to the
Yeah.
Lee Street side, and it, depending on where you're, and for that matter, if you needed the square footage of that, your pavilion could be deeper than it is wide. And for anybody that's interested, because I'm a history nut, this drawing is architecturally pulled off of the old Central grade school that we all remember from years ago.
Well, not all of them.
And so that's kind of, I was looking for for something historic that we can kind of spin this off of, but it's a totally flexible dimensions-wise. And that building, as I have drawn it, would not be an extremely expensive building to build. It's not like it has windows and et cetera. It does have restrooms over on the right-hand side. I think somebody needs to check, and Terry, you might be the person to answer this. Can't you build sidewalks on an easement? You just can't build a roof.
building, and you can't build something that you have to move to get to that.
You can't build a roof, but you could put a sidewalk on that, or you could put a kids item in there, or something like that.
We were told no.
Well, somebody needs to double check that
I
because,
think that's the same thing. I deal with water and sewer.
All the time.
And storm sewer all
Yeah.
the time. We got storm sewers under all
Yep.
the streets and sidewalks in St. Albans on a lot of.
One of the reasons is you go in and put in a 200
All the
foot
streets and sidewalks are over
Something
top.
happens to the storm drain, then you gotta tear it all up.
Well, that's true.
So, you know,
Like
that,
every time we pave the street.
right, yeah, which,
Every
10 years.
Seems odd.
I agree with
that it
him, I don't
happens.
see why you couldn't put a sidewalk.
Well, that's what the
It's
building
whatever
is.
the requirements, the building codes and the requirements. You gotta have a specialist, you know, I think I know, but I don't.
yeah,
So therefore, you bring in the person who does know.
right.
Are you
Also,
speaking of the easement?
it's the property-
where
Hold on,
the line
hold on.
actually runs?
Well,
Or you
I'm
talking
not
about
sure where the
on the
line
side?
actually runs.
Nobody really did.
I believe that it's parallel to,
Okay, but my question is, assuming that it's here, are you talking about that easement right there, or are you talking about the easement on the edge of the street?
whatever's happening over on the right-hand side of that lot,
On the,
you can move away from it with
On the
your
edge of
permanent
10th
building. But you could still put a walking trail, you could put a kid's item, you could put a little barbecue stand, I mean, you could, or sidewalk.
Like he said though, I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we're ahead of the game. We need to do what we need to do before we sit and talk in circles, because we can talk about the possibilities, but until we know that this is or is not, we're just talking. So I think that we need to look at, before we continue with all of the thought, now I know you had your hand up, and we'll call it, okay, but before we need to just hold, and I'm the person that says, let's move. I've said this the whole time, let's move, okay? But I think we need to hold until we get the survey, or not the survey, the mapped out of the stormwater drain, and an answer to exactly what we can put on top of it. Until we do that, we're shooting a dead horse.
We're spinning in the water.
Okay, so it would, I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Two things here. Also, you might want to give Miss Utility a call. You might have other lines running through that property we don't know about. This came up as a surprise. You might want to take your time, council, and go through the whole thing and see what else is there. We don't know.
That's exactly what I mean.
And, because there's a lot of money involved here, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But saying that also, is the property behind the school, is that available, or is that part of it? The old Rouse property? Where
That's
house
the
is?
property he was talking about earlier, and it's.
Yeah, the Rouse property,
Unknown.
we're discussing, the possibility that they can eat the Rouse property too.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
but
Good.
they're asking for certain concessions to be made.
Okay.
And so far, it's something that we believe council can work with, but.
Well, being from the area up there, we've been milling around and talking to people, and they said, yeah, this and that. I just wanted to make sure you guys had word of that, and that way, you know,
That
more
property
information's
is
out
not
there.
owned by the city right now.
Right.
Yeah, it's 40 feet wide or thereabouts.
Okay.
And it looks like it's part of the junior high property because of the way
It all runs
they
there.
ate a bunch of his dirt when they leveled the property, the junior high
Pretty big
property.
hole right there.
Oh, yeah, yes there is. Okay, next item seems to be, when do we come back? I know council meets on the first and third Mondays. I chose Thursday to start with, or suggested it, and we've been doing it on Thursdays, but we can, I'm flexible.
Are you wanting to, committee, are we wanting to stay on Thursday? What's the general consensus?
Works for me.
That's fine.
So what we've been doing is the last Thursday of the
So
month or something?
Thursday the 30th would be the last Thursday of the month.
That's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah, a lot of
go
people out.
Yeah, a lot of people are not.
So how about May 23rd?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
16,
16,
Let's go into June.
I say we go into June. I'm with him.
That gives us-
16th doesn't give enough time
This
to,
gives us time to research a lot more
Yeah.
of this stuff, that once we get into painting and all, it's hard to
Okay.
tell what we'll find.
What about the first Thursday? in
first
June?
Thursday's Parks and Rec every month.
Okay.
So
Second Thursday.
13th of June.
13.
13th?
June 13th?
June 13th? Going once, going twice? All in favor, aye, no opposed, no? June 13th it is. Here, Dave, will you contact Howard to be, Andrew, thank you. And make sure, because we moved this meeting here because the last meeting couldn't stream from Hansford. So.
Did our streaming work? Streamer? No.
No, I probably didn't message these people that say it was.
That's
So
all
it
right.
dropped again.
My house has been doing that forever.
We will plan for the date and we will figure out the location. There is a possibility that Hansford may be getting a booster that would help to stream there. If that gets done, we can go back to Hansford and try that to try and get it out to the public as best we can.
Or we can just meet at the bottom of the AT&T tower.
All right, so we'll,
Same time, 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, good? Good for everybody else?
Works for me.
Thank you.
Dustin,
Yes, sir.
I'll let you know if I'm gonna, you can alert.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'll let you
Oh,
know.
yeah, well, hell, I'll drop by there today. so,
Okay.
Yeah.